My name is Patrice Bula. I'm a veteran at Nestlé. I don't know if some of you were there 5 years ago where I presented some part of our business. I've spent most of my career, almost 30 years abroad, a lot in Asia, but also Africa, Europe, and Eastern Europe. And I was called back here 5 years ago to head the strategic business unit, sales, marketing, and Nespresso. So it's my real pleasure, together with Stefan Catsicas, our Chief Technology Officer, to open a session that will last almost until lunch. But in fact, you will eat even more before lunch, I think, because what we decided to do is, in the first part, to talk a bit about innovation, how we are organized and how we see innovation at Nestlé, but also very rapidly go to the sixth row, where you have been told already twice. We have prepared a presentation where you can interact, eat, drink our product, and meet our people. Meet our people who are eager to show you what they are doing with innovation that have been recently launched or are going to be launched in a few months' time. And it will give you, I believe, a far better feel for this company, depths of innovation, how we create competitive gap in innovation by seeing the depth, the variety of what we do, and hopefully a lot of coherence also with what we do. We have a very dynamic innovation ecosystem that have been put in place over time. At the center of it, of course, is consumer. At the center of it is how we make our brand relevant today, tomorrow, to the consumer that have been with us for some time, or new consumer who are coming to us. I will not go through all of this, but I will just point out that tomorrow, in the session where we'll talk about winning through digital, we will get, you will see some results, some outcome of what we have done with our Silicon Valley outpost, which we created a few years ago. Also, our social listening outlet that we can also visit on the sixth row, which has several other antennas around the world, is creating for us, together with the disruptive identification, which is a work we have done with Institute for the Future and Google on getting early warning on new trends coming to the group and being able to have the foresight and go and launch product. You will see the one that are in blue. You will be exposed to them tomorrow in a very tangible way of what we have done. Brands are living creatures. You cannot live 150 years as a company if you are not feeding these brands, if you are not bringing to them investment, of course, building brands, but also innovating and renovating constantly. And all of you, I'm sure, knows brands that died, brands from your childhood that are no more here today. This is important work, and that's where I put a few metrics to just give you the magnitude of what is done day in, day out in our R&D centers to make this product part of the life of consumer. And you saw with Laurent the work done on the Lean Cuisine, which, by the way, was more than 200 products, cleaning up label, coming up with new recipe, organic ingredient, and so. And this is where you see here, about 40% of our turnover are made up of products which are only 3 years old. And this is, of course, quite a lot of renovation, but it's also the marketplace product that you saw from Lean Cuisine. About 1,000 renovations a year, 3,000 recipe reformulation, of which 500 is to achieve NF, Nutritional Foundation, which means for us a product that fits a healthy lifestyle and diet for our consumer. And this is an intense effort that all of us do day in, day out, and you will see this in our R&D network and beyond. And then you heard about 60-40. For those of you who may not know, we have a stringent view that we should win on a blind test against our most direct competitor. That's what we call 60-40. And products which do not actually achieve a 60-40 preference in a blind test, these products are not advertised, because we don't believe we have enough intrinsic, and Laurent highlighted this several times, intrinsic advantage to really talk to consumer and saying this brand is better for your life. This is an example of Maggi. This afternoon I'll show you another one on Nescafé, how a brand born in 1883 is still alive, with product which have been improved constantly, and the product we sell today have little to do, of course, with 50 years ago, but also quite little to do with product we sold only 5 years ago. This is the constant work of keeping brands alive, and this is what we do. What we want to do now, and I will leave the floor to Stefan Catsicas, is concentrate on the heart of this innovation ecosystem, where we build competitive gap through science, through nutrition, through health, through discovery, through patented formulas and technologies, and he will do this far better than me. How are we organized? And this is my last slide. This is where focus meets the platform of health, science, and nutrition. This is where, in this unique R&D setup in the food industry, you have in the verticality of technologies to win in coffee, to win in culinary, to win in chocolate. And this is how we describe it. But this verticality is competence in the category, in the industry in which we want to win. But it also cross-fertilizes, and we'll talk about this a lot, with platform, which allow us not only to improve our product across horizontally, but also discover new ways with new technology that can apply to more than one category. And I will leave the floor to Stefan, who will show you some example of what we're doing on this very unique and very rich ecosystem of research and development at Nestlé.
Thank you, Patrice, and good morning to all of you. I am Stefan Catsicas. I'm not a veteran. I joined Nestlé 3 years ago. I am a molecular biologist and geneticist by training, and I spent most of my life between industry, academia, and venture capital before joining Nestlé. So thank you for setting the scene, Patrice. As you can see, and this slide says it clearly, or should say it clearly, we start our innovation and our R&D inside businesses, well aligned with the business strategy. And then what we try to do in collaboration with our business partners is to actually expand beyond what was focused initially, so that we can leverage on the complexity and the breadth of our portfolio. Now, this relationship with businesses create a great freedom to operate, and this freedom to operate actually develops within a number of frameworks. The most important framework for what we have decided to describe to you today is actually the Nestl Commitment in society. To make a long story short, it is about reducing ingredients that we don't want to see too abundantly in our products, and increasing the ingredients that we think bring a benefit to consumers. And I will give you a few examples, keeping in mind, in order to follow the few details example that Patrice and I have chosen, that we do this without losing or compromising on taste and preference. Because if you remove too much sugar in one go, you will lose your consumers. So we have to do it in an intelligent and structured way. This actually shows you the table of content of my presentation. It's more or less the same slide that Patrice has shown, but what you have on the left-hand side are a few examples that we will cover now with you, and you will be exposed to some of the realizations later on during your walk on the 6th floor. Again, you can see, for example, sugar salt reduction. Let's start with this one. We are developing cutting-edge technologies that we are already thinking to apply across the boundaries of a given category. Let me give you the first example. What you have on the upper left panel is a normal sugar crystal. The interesting thing about this crystal is that it is full of sugar. You have sugar on the outside, you have sugar on the inside. When you put it on your mouth, what happens is what is happening now on the screen. The crystals actually do not dissolve. It takes some time. If you fix one of the small ones, you will see it disappearing little by little. But it takes more time for the sugar to dissolve than it takes you time to swallow it. So basically, you only feel what is on the outside, and you actually eat the whole amount of sugar. So what we have done is to invent new sugar. So this is pure sugar, natural sugar, but structured in a way that makes it dissolve almost immediately. The outcome is that whatever you put in your mouth, you feel. And this allows us to decrease massively the amount of sugar. We are not talking about removing 1, 2, or 5%. We are talking about massive reductions that we are starting to deploy in collaboration with the businesses. I don't give you timelines because this is still, to a large extent, at the industrialization phase. but it is our proprietary sugar that we will start to deploy into categories like confectionery, addressing children, with reductions of up to 40%, which is a game changer for the industry. More or less the same organization principle for salt. What you see on the left-hand side, colorized artificially, are microcrystals of salt decorating a food particle, which means that when you eat food, you don't have salt all over, or you don't have salt inside the particle, you only have it on the outside. So again, everything you feel, you ingest, which allows to reduce, again, quite significantly salt, which is a major target. Actually, the first product, Naki, has already been launched using this technology. Let's move to fat and proteins balance. Quite important, you know, fat are a bad press. We want to remove fat, but fat are also quite important for us, for our biology, for our physiology. What we need to do is to find the right balance between the different micronutrients, sugar, fat, and proteins. And if you just remove fat, human beings go directly into sugar. We don't go to protein. You remove sugar, we go to fat. You remove fat, we go to sugar. So we have to invent a new way to organizing through material science, the best possible ratio in this particular case. It is a project that we call Midas, analogy to Greek mythology. And what you see in the little cartoon in yellow are fat droplets decorated with protein. We have discovered a few years ago that if you hit the right ratio, right temperature, right physical condition, you end up optimizing the ratio of fat versus protein. When we started this, we wanted to achieve to reduce fat. What we did not expect, and we have been very lucky, but luck strikes the prepared mind, as Pasteur used to say, is that we generated completely new textures, different taste, different textures, different mouthfeels. It was a surprise. It belongs to us. It is proprietary, and we're going to deploy it. It is already out there. Laurent mentioned it. You remember when he said 50% less fat in ice cream? You have it up here. It is now being deployed in frozen food. And what was yet another surprise is that we are now going to deploy it in our Nestlé Health Science products. Why? Because one difficult event in elderly is that the energy needs are very high because the engine doesn't work anymore, but the appetite decreases. So by generating these new textures and optimized ratios between fat and proteins, we can actually provide the right energy to elderly people. Let's move on, and let's hit again healthy lipids. To have a healthy lipid, you have to change the lipid content, and you have to reduce it. So Patrice and I picked that example because it is a nice way to illustrate that we know that we are too small to succeed in everything we want to do. So we have engaged in a number of partnerships with industry partners, academia, venture capitals, and this is what I would like to highlight here. Here we had an alarm bell from our colleagues in the business saying that they needed and wanted a white cup creamer that had less calories than the ones the competitor have and than our own. So we started in New York with Columbia University and asked scientists over there to explain us better, to work with us, to understand how do we feel fat. And the big surprise was that it is not through taste receptors. It is through mechanoreceptors, like the ones we have at the tip of our fingers. That opened a completely new set of opportunities because then one could replace fat with particles of the same size and textures that wouldn't be fat. The first thing we had to do is to establish a model whether this would be feasible. We went to the University of Cambridge, the math department, where they did establish that model. With those data, we went to the University of Pierre and Marie Curie in Paris, where they developed for us a biomechanical sensor. And when we have put all those data together here at the Nestl Research Center in Lausanne, we came up with a new ingredient. I cannot give you all the details, but it is fully natural. It is fat-based, but much less fat. This ingredient was transferred in our product development center in Singapore, and it is now being industrialized for the markets in Southeast Asia. One example of open innovation. There are many more. Let me now go to pure fraction. The beauty of nutrition, if you compare it to pharma, for example, is that nutrition is very complex. This complexity makes it very difficult, if at all possible, to master everything. But it gives us an opportunity to add and remove ingredients, to try to reach a stage when food has exactly the balance of ingredients that we want. So let me show you an interesting example here. This is one thing that Patrice has referred to. We are consumer driven. What you see behind me, those pink, green, gray, blue, and light green, are the way we segment the consumer world in terms of preference when it comes to coffee. Nescafé sits in the middle of the green spot, the gray circle that you see. And as you know, because I'm sure you have tasted Nescafé, one of the characteristics of Nescafé is this healthy, roasty, sometimes rubbery taste that many Nescafé lovers adore, by the way. But some would like something closer to a smoother sensation. So again, the business had this clear vision. There was pressure to achieve this. They came to us. We sat down together, and we tried to design a solution. The solution was to chemically identify the actual molecules that are responsible for those tastes, the rubbery taste. We were lucky once again, because all those molecules belong to the same class, and they can be separated through membranes that put water solutions on one side and molecules that like lipids on the other side. You see this in this cartoon? If I take the processing chain from roasting, grinding, extraction, evaporation, and drying, we were able to design a cartridge that we can plug and play into our existing lines. Very little capex, very high efficiency. It is already being deployed in one large market in Zone Mina, and as you can see, it is planned for a major renovation of Nescafé, presented as the freshest Nescafé ever, thanks to this membrane technology, starting in 2016, starting as we speak. Now, the same technology, again, cross-category, is used in infant formulas. Infant formulas try to mimic, try to be inspired by nature as much as possible. It happens that human breast milk and mammalian milk in general is full of molecules called oligosaccharides. Those are small sugars that we have in our mother's breast milks. The one surprise is that babies are not capable to digest those molecules. Yet breast milk is loaded with it. And we know from the literature that actually those molecules go and feed the microbiome in the gut of the baby. And in doing so, participate to building their immune system and the digestive system efficiency. So we designed a membrane that was specifically designed to see the same principle, flow in one direction, extraction in the other direction, and we can thereby enrich our milk formula in oligosaccharides. Let us move on, getting to the harder and harder part. So if you feel really uncomfortable, wave your hand. It will not change anything to my presentation, but at least I will feel uncomfortable too. Fortification is about adding the nice products. And we all underestimate the impact and power of fortification. We started in developing countries for obvious reasons. We now know that in most developed countries, there are major issues and concern in under-fortification. For example, in Germany, a very good example, young women are low in iron at periodic intervals every month for obvious reasons, but to an extent that was underestimated by everyone, and certainly the medical community. So you see this extraordinary number that our colleagues in marketing and sales forces were able to sell in 2015, almost 200 billion of fortified products. Now let's focus on this young lady here, in the case of iron. She's probably low in iron. She feels weak, she has a headache, she cannot concentrate. However, as soon as you replenish her stock of iron, she will feel good. It is totally reversible in adults and young adults. In babies, it is not at all the case. Now, this is the only graph that I'm going to show, but it is so important that I would recommend that you really take some time to follow me. So on the vertical axis, you have a measurement of iron in the blood. The horizontal bar here is the threshold to be above or below what is actually needed to have normal levels. Now, babies that have access to fortified food are safe. Babies that do not have access to fortified food, as you can see, between the age of 6 months and 22 months, are actually below the safety line. The difference between babies and adults is that if in this time window of 2 years, a baby brain is not exposed to the right amount of iron, it will have an irreversible deficit and will never reach the maximal capacity of development. So it is a major responsibility to provide those fortified foods. And I have here the example. We have leading brands in some of these countries, Pakistan not to name it. We really have more than 50% market share, close to 80% market share. So we feel this as a major responsibility to continue to provide at all costs the right fortification for these young minds. We also have economy teams, internal and external ones, showing that not only it is unfair and it is a tragedy for the child, but also for the countries, it represents a net loss in productivity capacity. Interestingly enough, many governments respond to this much faster because it is tangible, it is measurable, and it can be demonstrated. Now, we do fortify for babies. I mentioned the infant formula with oligosaccharides. I now mention fortified foods. This is one of the most extraordinary stories that I came across since I joined Nestlé. First of all, this is a major open innovation collaboration between Nestlé, University of Southampton, Singapore, and Auckland in New Zealand. This is a private-public partnership paid 50-50 by us and by the 3 governments involved. And it is about fighting gestational diabetes. Pregnant women have a tendency to actually, or an increased probability, to develop diabetes. In most cases, we know that it is reversible. However, what we have learned over the last 5 years, no more, is that being diabetic as a pregnant woman has an impact on the probability of the baby to develop metabolic syndrome disorders, that type 2 diabetes, morbid obesity, and so on, later on in life. It is due to very complex, sophisticated epigenetic mechanisms. This is not the point today, but it is important for us because we have an opportunity to support the moms and at the same time to support the future health of the babies. All right, I'm getting close to the end of my part. I will now slow down a bit because this is maybe a bit more technical, but also quite important. A major area of focus for us is brain development for babies, brain function for an adult, and maintenance of cognitive capacity for the elderly. I've chosen, together with Patrice, one example. This is what we call the brain-skin-gut nexus. We will not talk about skin today. We have mentioned a bit the microbiome. You see the bacteria on the lower end of the graph. I will focus on the brain for the example that we have selected today. The brain represents 5% of our body mass and needs 20% of our energy, particularly so during sleep, by the way. That's when the brain is the most active. So that the body actually channels food and nutrients specifically to the brain during those important moments. Now, sometimes the system gets disrupted. And this is a young boy named Charlie that actually has so-called refractory epilepsy. This young child has up to 20 or 30 epileptic episodes per day, which means a very difficult life, no real school, difficult to have friends. We don't understand, medically speaking, why it is refractory. Let me show you what it looks like.
This is Charlie. He's from Epsom and he's got epilepsy. Every day he has between 10 and 20 seizures.
15 minutes after arriving, Charlie has a drop attack, which his parents worry is affecting his development. Despite being on anti-epileptic drugs, Charlie still has up to 20 seizures each day that cause him to fall, so has to wear a protective helmet.
You want me to hit him? No, me.
Wow.
what we'd like to try is something called the ketogenic diet. Now what this does is mimic starvation. So it's really important this kind of thing is done under supervision by a trained professional dietitian and paediatrician.
The ketogenic diet is very high in fat, sometimes up to 90%. Carbs are almost out of the question, and there are restricted amounts of protein.
He hasn't had a seizure since the 2nd of August now.
Goodness, so that's like nearly 2 months.
The fact that he's coming back to the Charlie we used to know, so it's just brilliant. Where are you going with that ball?
As with Charlie, the diet has revolutionised the lives of many families. Approximately half of all children with difficult-to-control epilepsy have significant seizure reduction when treated with the diet.
This is a clear example of established scientific food as medicine.
So we don't really know how and why the ketogenic diet works. What we know is that it is very difficult to be compliant, because you can imagine what it is to eat only fat. So what happens is that as long as the family, parents are there to prepare the right diet, it works. And then when the children grow up and become more independent, compliance ceases. It is a very difficult situation. So, and this is a collaboration of a few years ago with the Federal Institute nearby and IBM, where they have actually reconstructed a group of 10,000 neurons, one of the biggest big data experiments that has been done in this region, by the way. Each of those little dots are neurons, and then they have branches and they communicate with each other. And what the movie shows is that when there is an impulse, they light up. And if you watch it carefully, you see that all of a sudden everything becomes yellow. Well, in the brain of that young epileptic children, what happens is a continuous storm of electrical signals, so strong that it shuts down the system, and that's why you see him falling on the ground. So we have decided to get into those cells and understand what happens so that we can design alternatives to a strict ketogenic diet. What you see here is actually one single human neuron growing in culture. The black spot in the center is the nucleus with the DNA, and those little blue structures are what we call mitochondria. Every cell in our body has thousands of those. Million years ago, these used to be bacteria that colonized our cells. They colonized plants, they colonized everything that lives on Earth. And they are the energy factory of our body. And they determine how much energy should go where and when. And what seems to be disrupted in refractory epilepsies is exactly this balance between storing and delivering energy. And we have now on the market through VitaFlow, a fully owned subsidiary acquired by Nestlé Health Science, ketogenic diet products, including MCTs, which are mid-chain triglycerides, lipids that are very easy to digest. The life of these children has changed enormously. When the clinical trial started, I remember the principal investigators calling up and say, what we would like to do when we start this trial is to show to these children that they will eat normal products, that they will be like anybody else. Can you actually do for us mid-chain triglyceride containing chocolate? So we stopped one of our pilot plants, and we actually produced that chocolate with MCT, which tasted very well, and that all the children enrolled in the clinical trial were able to test. We are very happy about that. So to summarize, this example, I think in some way retraces the journey towards nutrition, health, and wellness, and understanding more and more the molecular basis of nutrition. So it started with high-fat diets. We now have today highly safe, palatable, good taste, processed products to give to those patients. And tomorrow we will try to understand the molecular mechanisms so we can design better nutrition-based therapies. So I finished this journey that we have designed for you. Before I give back the floor to Patrice, I would like to share with you the key takeaways. So the R&D organization is people-centric, which means that through the businesses, we try to anticipate trends out there. We work in the framework that I mentioned, but we are people-centric. We are category-focused, aligned with each business, but at the same time, our job is once something has been discovered to expand it across categories. We have a global presence. I think you're better familiar than me about our global R&D network. We have 41 sites now around the world. I just show you the Lausanne and the Singapore site today. And we are open innovation driven, which is part of the first slide that Patrice shared with you. It was this very dynamic ecosystem, the outpost in California, the mass challenge to promote entrepreneurship, and so on. We are strong, of course, we lead in the industry, but we realize that to win those major challenges, we have to partner with others. And I thank you very much for your attention and give you the floor.
Thank you, Stefan. So you understand why we are two to present this. So meanwhile, back at the ranch, I think Stefan showed you the far end of this extraordinary journey of this company towards nutrition, health, and wellness. And that is the ambition. That's what our scientists, our researchers discover and bring, and is creating this excitement and this unique capability of this company to drive to new frontier. What I wanted to do before you go on the sixth floor is to show you a few platforms, how we have organized ourselves. And these are products that have been launched recently or are going to be launched. And these are less extraordinary than what Stefan just showed, but these are tangible. These are products that exist and contribute to a great life of consumer. So I will not go in detail. When you visit, you will see Shape, which is the most advanced infant formula we have today on the market. It shouldn't say low protein only, it should say the exact right protein with the right amount of protein for a baby, and this has required a lot of research. Boost, a product that is very successful in the US, a product to bring vitality to people in a recovery stage. One extraordinary product you will see there, Bright Mind, where we talk about and are able to improve cognitive performance in pet. This is nutrition-led. This is where science comes with such authority development that we put them on the market and push them on this authority of science. Another platform is what we call technology-led. This is also in our R&D system, where we find through the network that Stefan mentioned, points where we can bring a known technology or discovery to other product group and say we are going to push it to consumer. Nobody told Nestlé 25 years ago to put coffee in a capsule. But we did. This is what we mean. And there we have, and we know this will take time, it needs patience, but we believe we will break through. This specialty, you will see this, you know this, we have launched 5 years ago. Tea 5 years ago, some people say, well, you know, this is a small thing, and so I saw that some of the biggest tea brands are launching also now system in the last few months because this will take time, and this has quite a lot of technology there, and as a startup is moving on. I brought here what we call Papyrus, which are sheet of a culinary product which are easy scratch cooking in a pan, and you will discover that if you have not seen this before. The last one is L'Atelier, a technology. Sometimes you see a product and you see that you have apparent ingredient, nuts and raisin, and so well to achieve this you need quite a lot of research and patent. This is a product we launched in Europe, which is very successful. Then I have a few slides on consumer insight-led. These are really the new wellness dimension that some of you mentioned earlier this morning. We talk about gluten-free. You will see some product we're deploying across quite a large part of our range. Also, this whole drive on more naturality, authenticity, organic product. This means clean label. This means new sourcing of organic product, etc., and cleaning up a label. Another dimension, you will see this in action, is a flexitarian reality. People deciding to eat less meat during the year or the week. And we are launching a range in Europe now, and also adapting under our Herta brand a whole range of a vegan product. You will see this product in action. Low lactose, grain-based diet. There was this morning a question about plant-based diet or non-dairy. We have outside the US quite a range, of course, in China with Inlu, but Brazil, Nesfit, or grain product with Uncle Toby. In Australia, you will see more when you go on the 6th floor. Premiumization is a big trend. We talk about coffee, but I took other example, ice cream, of course, but maybe some products which are less obvious as premiumization. I put here instant noodle in Malaysia, Singapore, where we have launched noodle 18 months ago, sold at twice the price of a different quality with different ingredients, and have been very, very well received on the market and Cahiers International. The Good Lifer specific need, you will see this, is we will talk about the millennial quite a lot, I'm sure, today, but a big portion of our population is aging and has specific need. You see a few products here, Meriton from Health Science, a product launched in the Greater China region with the 4 key benefit elements required by Good Lifers. And as you may know, we have quite a solid adult milk business in China that we intend to grow further. Acticol Omega is a cholesterol controlling product. Finally, and this you will see a bit more tomorrow when we talk about digital, what we call innovating beyond product. We believe that brands can live beyond, and the role in the life of our consumer can be expanded if we provide new layers of service centered on nutrition or other things, but you will talk about nutrition a lot, that enrich the life of this product. You will be exposed to what we have done with Milo, with a quite outstanding and unique ecosystem of children having a activity device on their arm, the mother being connected with a cell phone. You will see this in action tomorrow and on the 6th floor. Vitel is a small device to remind people to drink water. You will see that health services, this is what we're doing in Japan. You will be exposed to that tomorrow. And finally, route to market. You will see also on the 6th floor, we are trying to reproduce a bit the success of chocolaterie Kit Kat, which, as you may know, was launched in Japan and is now being, and we are proud of that, rolled out in Australia, because sometimes people believe innovation in Japan can only stay in Japan, but it's not the case. And in there we sell Kit Kat at extraordinary premium priced, specially made Kit Kat, and so hopefully you will enjoy that. So I think this is the last slide I have. This is the end of this first part on innovation, and I leave Stefan to guide you.